90.7 FM.
When I'm in Portland,
When I'm in Portland,
from KBOO.
check it for 90.7 KBOO for real.
Emma, take one.
My name is Emma Lugo, and I'm a gardener. So outside of KBOO, I run a small gardening business. I'm also an activist. I got started in the anti-war movement back in the 80s, and I've been involved as an anti-war, peace, prison abolition, environmental activist. I've also been a candidate with the Green Party. I ran for U.S. Senate in 2014. I've also run for U.S. House. I'm a co-host of Transpositive, which it's going on our 10th anniversary this year. It was sort of a byproduct of the 2014 Trans Rights March, which was the first trans march we'd had in Portland in several years. And the organizing that came out of the Trans Pride March of 2014, I was inspired, and so I wrote a program proposal for Transpositive, and I submitted it here to KBOO at the time. I think Lisa Levin was the news director, and I think Jenka was the web person. I knew Jenka and Lisa, so I submitted a proposal to them, and the program committee looked at it and they accepted it. Before that time, I was also helping to co-produce Prison Pipeline. Prison Pipeline addresses Oregon's correctional infrastructure. We look at the prison industrial complex, and we talk about issues like prison abolition, justice for adults in custody. We examine all aspects of Oregon's criminal justice system. Prison Pipeline has been running for about 25 years, and so I'm just the latest in a long line of co-hosts for Prison Pipeline, and I'm still a producer on Prison Pipeline. So I first heard about KBOO when I lived in Tennessee. I knew Alan Graff, who was the president of KBOO back in the 80s, and he's a civil rights lawyer who defended peace activists here in Portland during the 80s. One of his most famous cases was he sued the city when they pepper sprayed a baby, when the PPB pepper sprayed a baby. But he served as president of KBOO, and I knew him in Tennessee because he had moved to Tennessee, and he lived on this big commune in Tennessee called The Farm, it's the nation's oldest hippie commune. And I lived in Nashville, and I knew a lot of the activists from the scene, and I told them I was moving to Portland, and Alan told me to get connected up with KBOO when I came here. My favorite thing about KBOO is it's really unique and eclectic programming. KBOO is a station which really is dedicated to serving underrepresented voices, and KBOO doesn't drive its mission through like corporate programming or a corporate agenda. It doesn't follow a money agenda. KBOO really tries to represent underserved communities, and it also is a place for a lot of fun where you can do really eclectic and unique music programming. And the music is 70% of KBOO's content, and the music is great, and so is its public affairs programming. I really love almost everything about KBOO. I guess that for me personally, a really positive memory I've had of KBOO, there's just so many. So one of them was when I was with the Green Party for 25 years, and we brought Jill Stein here to KBOO at least twice to do in-studio interviews. Jill has been the Green Party candidate for president in 2016, 2020, and 2024. And she's been a great person to carry the Green Party message about green economy, Green New Deal, about peace, ecology. I feel like a lot of the values that the Green Party represents really overlap with a lot of KBOO's values, especially about grassroots democracy. And I feel like KBOO is very much of a grassroots kind of place. I think that probably the most impactful interview I've ever done. I've done so many interviews here at KBOO. Literally just hundreds of interviews, and even more. As many over Zoom. But here in the station, I interviewed a man once for Prison Pipeline who was imprisoned for a crime he committed when he was 12 years old in Texas. And he ended up serving, I think, 36 years in prison for a crime that he committed when he was 12. So he was in Texas by the time he went to trial when he was 13, and they determined that he could be tried as an adult for the crime that he committed when he was only 12 years old. And so he basically grew up in prison. And I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people who have done lots of time, but there was something about him. I mean, he transformed the experience that would have warped so many people to be sent to prison. If you can imagine being 12 years old and being told you have to spend your life in prison and what that would do to you. But he overcame his environment, and he got 2 college degrees, and he did a lot of really meaningful work while he was incarcerated. He's been out now for a while, and he's continued to live a really productive and meaningful life, speaking out against harsh sentencing and also against, talking about what happens when you incarcerate somebody who's, not even not just a child. Because we do that in this country. I mean, we don't maybe think about it, but we incarcerate people as young as 12 or 13, sometimes for decades. And it's such a travesty. And to me, it's part of why I'm so proud of Prison Pipeline, because Prison Pipeline is one of the only places I know where we can regularly get former adults in custody on the show, talking about abolition, talking about prison reform, talking about the gross injustices that happen in Oregon's in Oregon and nationally with the prison system, which unfortunately right now is going crazy. I mean, we just gave $150 billion to create 120 new prisons for undocumented workers who haven't committed any crimes other than coming to this country undocumented, but other than that, they work here, they're part of our communities, and now we're spending billions and billions of dollars to send these people to these horrible prisons. And that's why we do Prison Pipeline, because we have a chance to really raise awareness, and that's part of why KBOO matters so much, because you won't get that kind of voice on any other station in the market here, not even OPB. Gosh, community radio is just so important. I mean, another program that I contribute to sometimes is Radiozine, and we just put on an episode of Radiozine this week. It was called Teaching Palestine, and it was an interview with 2 public educators here in Portland who work with the Zinn Education Project, and they wrote a book called Teaching Palestine. It's an educator's guidebook for how to teach children about genocide. And I am able to get on KBOO, and I'm able to talk about the genocide that's happening in Palestine. For me, as somebody who's Jewish, I am just so overwhelmed and so heartbroken at this moment. And I have been ever since Shmini Aretz, ever since October 7th. I was devastated by what happened on October 7th, and I was devastated by what happened on October 8th. And in my mind, what's happening is a genocide. And I was so grateful because I was at the Grassroots Radio Conference in 2024, it's been now. KBOO sent me to the conference as part of the board. I was the president in 2024. And I had a chance to sit down and listen to Amy Goodman. And Amy Goodman was the only person at the time in the mainstream media who was talking about the bombardment that was happening in Gaza in the 20 days following Shmini Aretz, when the massacre of Jews happened on October 7th. And Amy Goodman was presenting the most accurate and realistic picture of what was happening in Gaza, and I think that all of us who were involved in Palestinian justice could see what was unfolding in front of our eyes. I mean, we knew this was going to turn into a genocide, and it has been. And being able to talk about in the public schools is still very, very dangerous. Like, it's hard for people to talk about this, the fact that there's a genocide happening. But these two really brave educators wrote a book about this. They published their book, they've been circulating it. They're both teachers, and they know what they're talking about. I mean, one of them is Jewish. I don't know if both of them are, but they know what they're talking about, and it's important. I mean, kids need to have this information in front of them. They need to be educated to all of the acts of genocide that happen, including the ones that are perpetuated by our own government and by our own military and the weapons that we send. So, that's KBOO is great because we can do that in KBOO. We can actually talk about the truth of the moment, and we're not afraid. I served as president of KBOO for 2 years, and we have a lot of problems at KBOO. I mean, the biggest problem that we have, though, is that we're spending a lot more money than we're making. And it's an unfortunate challenge that faces most nonprofits. The loss of CPB funding is really significant. I mean, we lost in a 2-year period. I think we're going to lose somewhere between $110,000 and $130,000. I can't remember the exact number, but that represents operationally somewhere between 10 and 12% of KBOO's overall budget. And it's really hard work getting like $60,000 or $70,000 a year extra. And that's something that is there because we trust that the government has a vital interest in supporting community radio. Unfortunately, because of the times that we're in, the government is withdrawing that support. And so it's up to us as KBOO listeners, as people who care about our community, to really work and dig into our pockets and make up the difference, because that represents a staff salary, that represents a soundboard, that represents the kind of fees that we have to pay to play our music. That's our electricity bill, and I think that we're probably looking at least 2 to 3 years where we're not going to have CPB funding. I imagine with the next Democratic administration, we'll see, kind of a recurrence of that. But right now, we're really going to kind of be on our own. And so, but I know that the community here is strong, the community in Portland is resilient, and I'm pretty sure that we can make it happen. I mean, one of the most wonderful things I ever saw when I was at KBOO was we saw somebody do what is called planned giving. And one very generous donor gave KBOO $383,000 from an estate that they broke up 6 ways and gave to 6 different nonprofits here in Portland. And, we can make up for some of the difference in our losses by encouraging people to put KBOO in your will, to talk now with a long-term planner. And, if you have a life insurance policy that you plan to cash out, if you have planned giving, make sure that KBOO is one of those recipients, because that's one of the ways you can really leave a legacy. People should support KBOO because KBOO is just the most amazing gem of a radio station. I mean, I can tell you as somebody who's lived in 3 different radio markets in this country that are a similar size to Portland. I've lived in Denver, I've lived in Minneapolis, I've lived in Nashville. And nowhere in this country are there stations like the big band stations that are, used to be sort of part of the Pacifica Network or affiliated with the Pacifica Network. I mean, KBOO, WBAI, KFAI, these are stations that have a big reach, and they're just really unique. I mean, they're grassroots. They started at the right time, and our community over the course of 55 years has really invested in this incredible resource. We have this amazing resource that we could never get in other cities that I've lived in. I mean, I've done radio my entire adult life. I've been part of starting up radio stations, LPFMs. I'm still part of the grassroots radio consortium of people we communicate, and it's really hard to get something like KBOO. KBOO is just such a gem, and it's so important that we preserve it, because KBOO is the kind of place where you can do programming about the racial justice movement, about the environment, about anti-war, about the attack on women's rights, about trans rights, about LGBTQIA2S+ rights. It's the kind of station where you can talk about folks who are incarcerated. You know, you can do stuff about all of those different issues and other issues that really matter, that people really care about, and that you're not going to hear about anywhere in the corporate media. All you're going to hear is a slant that doesn't represent anything about the reality of people whose lived lives matter. You know, you're not going to hear those stories. And KBOO, we do that every day. I mean, every day we do that here through our programming, and then we have the most amazing music. I mean, I think that KBOO has produced some of the most amazing people too. I mean, people who I've had a chance to meet and get to know over the years here at this station. I mean, I think the station is a place where people come to really make a difference. For instance, I was so very proud that Joanne Hardesty was our city councilor for, you know, an entire term during a time when we really needed to hear a voice like Joanne's. And, you know, Shahid was a great voice of KBOO. I mean, the KBOO has had so many amazing voices, so many people who have contributed to what the station is over 55 years. There's so many. And I mean, those are the people that really matter.